Oh, first technical thing going ahead right now. It's Simon Misiewicz again, but this time unmuted. Good evening, everyone. My name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimise Accountants, and I hope that you are well today on this lovely, yet again, a gorgeous day outside. Lovely sunshine as we head towards the 30 degrees Celsius. It's beautiful, isn't it? I'm hoping you're enjoying the sunshine as much as I am, but as usual, making sure you keep rehydrated, as I will be too today, and making sure that you also apply that sunscreen to make sure that you do not have any sunburn. I wouldn't want you to be uncomfortable watching this show as we go through proceedings. So good evening, everyone, and let's start with today's show. What are we planning on today? What I want to do is share with you my screen, and I'll share with you some of the things we'll be talking about tonight. So let's go ahead and find my slide share because I've just lost them. Here we go. Okay, let's start today with our PowerPoint, and see, here we go. So we will be starting again at 7 p.m. So good evening and welcome to our Property Live, where I will be answering any property investment questions that you may have. And indeed, if you have any property tax related questions, I will be answering those for you again this evening. So please feel free to start typing away any property investment questions or indeed any property tax questions. So you may have single let properties, HMOs, service accommodation. You're not sure how to invest in them. You may have questions about investing in those kind of products. But more importantly, you may also have things with regards to income tax, VAT, and various other things like that. So you may have different types of questions as we're going through. One thing I just had a thought about, and I thought might be useful for tonight's session, I'm going to start doing that from now on, is talking about the types of tax that may apply. I'm just going to go back to my full screen as I just edit one of my slides, just so I can bring the subject into just subject matter, which I think will be quite useful for us to talk about going forwards. So I'm just going to slide that in here, and that's going to work. And I'm just going to save that perfectly, and we'll do that from here. Cool. So let's have a look. So let's make sure that we can now go ahead and start to share that video. Let's go back into there. Right. So again, if you have different types of property investment questions, do feel free to type those into here. But also, if you've got any types of questions regards to SDLT when you're buying a property, if you've got VAT questions when you're refurbishing a property, you've got income tax, corporation tax, ATED, then you've got capital gains tax and inheritance tax as well. There's so many taxes that affect you as a buy-to-let property investor, landlord. Well, that's a mouthful, isn't it? That you need to be aware of. And that's what we'll be talking all the way through. But again, it's not just about property tax, albeit we are specialists in this area. I also want to know about your specific tax questions, your property investment questions as well. I've noticed my camera's gone slightly off kilter, so I'm going to just bring that a bit closer, hopefully not to frighten you too much, and just head you away from that. That's perfect. Okay, so there's a bit of a wall line up here I've just noticed, which doesn't look too great, so I'm going to just try and hide that, just so it doesn't look too odd. Okay, so let's go ahead about what's in tonight. We're going to be talking about what's in the news. So I'm going to be looking at the press articles that's been talked about, buy-to-let property investing, whether that's mortgages, whether that's taxation, all the world of property investing as we know it currently right now. And so I'll be looking at in the news. I'll also be looking at client FAQ as well. So what have our clients been asking in the past week, and how have we been helping them get over those kind of difficult situations? And lastly, I'll be doing a YouTube FAQ as well. But I want you to stay tuned because there's a special announcement that I want to share with you tonight about something that's going to happen in 2 weeks' time. So that's something that's going to happen in 2 weeks' time. And hopefully it will kind of give you a bit of a huge bonus. Free material, indeed, from myself to you. And there is a reason why I'm doing this, and I shall unveil that later on. So please do stay tuned, and I will cover that ground later on. But let's talk about what has been in the news. And in order for me to do that, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to share with you the latest news articles that I have been reading, something that you may be aware of, and I will always put in the items, titles, subject matter in the comments box below. So if you're watching this video back at some point, feel free to look at the links down below the comments box. I should use two hands. Most YouTubers, they do really emphasize that below the comments box and below this video, and I only do one, so maybe it's kind of half-baked, kind of not even really making an effort. So here it is, down below the video box is where all my comments are going to be. Make sure that you press the like button if you like this kind of video. If it's been useful for you, make sure you hit that like button and drop in any comments about your questions that you may have as well in relation to the articles, or indeed your particular tax situation that I might be able to help you with. Wow, I'm not into this marketing thing at all, but hopefully I'm doing an okay job. Let's move on then. So let's talk about what has been going on in the news world. And unfortunately, something's happened here where I can't do a share, so that's weird. So let's just go into my Google Chrome has disappeared altogether. Okay, I'm here. Hopefully you see my Google Chrome now up here. So good afternoon to you all that's listening. And we're going to hit off on the first article, which was written off again by Association. Association is a great piece of website, but they do fantastic articles. So make sure that you do read into those. I have not had a week yet where I have gone through the news articles by different tabloids, and they're not there. They're there every single week, providing you with great content and information. So do feel free to kind of see by Association and listen to what they have to say. So real good stuff on there. So should landlords run their buy-to-let through a limited company? And again, what most people have been talking about, should you be running your property business through a limited company? And it's interesting to see that they're saying the new analysis is, I'm just going to zoom this in for you here. So new analysis, or just new analysis. Okay, let's go through. Let's calm things down a little here. As we talk about the new analysis, that is saying that complex professional buy-to-let property investors, buy-to-let landlords have been surging in terms of the number of portfolios owned in a limited company structure. And they always talk about there in terms of saying Paragon have revealed that number of landlords with just one property, including accidental landlords, have been dropping out in terms of from 78% to 45%. So a lot of people are buying through a limited company. These guys, by association, do talk about the benefits of Section 24, which I'll keep highlighted here for you. Clearly, using a limited company does have a tax advantage. We talk about limited companies quite a lot, and we've got quite a few videos which I'll be popping up here, talk about limited company structures. And more importantly, things that you should consider when buying a property inside a limited company. So Section 24 does not affect limited company structures. The corporation tax rate is 17%. So clearly there are some advantages. The one thing I would always say about this particular article or any other article is the fact that you do need to consider when you're thinking about setting up a limited company, what's the reason for it? How long is your current situation, which you're basing your limited company structure, going to last? Is it going to be lasting towards 6 months or whatever else? So you do need to think about that. But a good, again, article. And do sign up for their articles. Very, very good material. It's something that you should be looking at into this. And they don't provide any marketing or kind of fees to us, but they do talk about sourcing deals for you. So it's worth having a look at those guys anyway, and do your due diligence on this organization, but at least see what they're up to. The next one is, again, the same news in the last 7 to 10 days has been around should you use a limited company structure. So again, another article written by the Telegraph have been citing this limited company structure as well. And if you look at this, there was talk about returns have slumped in recent years, blah, blah, blah. But another one, if you can go into this, is that the fact that the limited company structure, because of the tax breaks, specifically by high rate taxpayers. What we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow landlords and property investors, that we are not going to be down tools with the whole kind of property investing. We're going to just find another tax framework known as limited companies, and that's what you're going to see going forwards. It'll be interesting to see Boris as well now coming ahead, the PM of this country. I've got to say, I'm pretty pleased with that announcement personally. I appreciate some of the quirkiness of his character, but actually I think that's quite an endearing character. It's finally nice to have a personality heading up our country rather than the damp squids that we've had in recent times. So another one, which is landlordnews.co.uk. This is the first time that I have to say that I've seen landlordnews.co.uk, got to be honest with you. But again, very much looking at buy-to-let mortgages and first-time buyers, that's increasing. One thing I did pick up on this particular article, and I'll just try and find the title, there you go. Majority of buy-to-let lenders offer mortgage products to limited companies. So there is this natural trend now, isn't there? We talked about limited companies in the last, I would say, I've been doing this YouTube live now for maybe 2, maybe 3 months. I'm not sure if it's that long actually, maybe 2 months. But during that time, I don't think I've had one moment where the whole thing about buy-to-let mortgages, they're changing the rates for limited companies. Now it's the different product ranges for limited companies and the tax advantages of limited companies and how you should use them. So it's definitely one of those things that is hot subject. We've done lots of videos about that. And again, if you think about, should I use a limited company because of Section 24, watch this video. I will be making sure that I'll keep you up to date with that kind of video, which introduces you to limited companies and does debate whether you should use a limited company at all. Don't just jump into limited company structures. I have seen that a lot. I don't think you always necessarily need to use a limited company, but that video up there, that will tell you should you use a limited company or not. And it will settle your nerves and it will give you, well, the 2 keywords I always use is comfort and confidence in your property investment journey. And I think this video in particular would be useful for you to say, well, should I use a limited company or not? And maybe that should settle your nerves. But coming back to this article, again, landlordsnews.co.uk, majority of buy-to-let lenders offer mortgage products to limited company structures. And it was just saying the findings of this research was reflected in the value of buy-to-let mortgage applications completed in the quarter. Mortgage for business, 52% of landlords were using limited companies. I've got to be honest, I reckon it will be more than that altogether. Lenders' margins over the cost of funds fell slightly to 0.54%, so the average 0.55. This does not appear to be a big drop, but it demonstrates that lenders are having to really squeeze margins to remain competitive in low loan-to-value products. Has been better off. So we're finding that there's less banks, and we are seeing already that banks now are fleeing the buy-to-let mortgage product range because of the margins so tight. And the rates are coming down even more. So we talked about rates last week of between 1.4, 1.8% for in your own name versus 2% or 2.5% in a limited company. And those values are going down each time. So it's an interesting perspective. Again, just common themes that are now coming out constantly, which is using limited companies. And again, please do watch that previous video I talked about earlier. And the amount of buy-to-let mortgages that are coming out for that as well. Just talking about different side of it. This is an article by Letting Agent Today. Again, another news articles that I read quite a lot is from Letting Agent Today. And they've talked about latest buy-to-let hotspots unveiled by management gurus. I hate the use of management gurus, I've got to say. Always kind of says this one person knows everything, and I just don't think that's true. But anyway, well, let's ignore the title. But David Alexander has said that price in Manchester has risen, and there's capital growth in there, but also good investment going into Manchester, which has always been the case. We are seeing as well that the market return investment in that area is also doing very well. If you've got good products, I have to say that Manchester, a bit like London now, are getting pickier and choosier about the standard of properties that people will rent out from you. So don't go expecting to kind of, if you're used to in the Midlands, for instance, doing magnolia walls, and then getting away with that in Manchester, you're simply not going to be able to do that. But it was an interesting article, so I do have a look at that. If you're looking at different areas to get better margins, then do feel free to look at their article here. A great insight into why Manchester is such a great area to be going into. And it continues with different analysis and so on like that. So have a look at that article if you think about using a different location for your investments. The Telegraph, again, this is a first for me that I've used the Telegraph second reference in one session. But I have said on here, weak pound and falling prices, how overseas investors are flocking to buy half-price British properties. Please note the word half-price British properties. I went over to the States to try and promote the idea of buying US American stock, or what they will call real estate stock, so property. And the thing that I was always saying is that you should look at things like holiday homes. You should look at the idea of having a property to diversify in a different country. Something that happens in this country may not affect that country. But the issue with the States and any other country that you are looking as a UK investor is the currency exchange is a shocker, I have to say. And so there's just no way I could even start to think about buying a property in the US unless it's an emotionally driven thing to do. But logic would dictate that the currency conversion rate is not very good at all currently. And I would say that's overall. So this is another article that just talks about, and I won't go into too much now, but if you look at that in terms of the number of properties by the UK is less than before, but the amount of buy-to-let investors that are coming from the other countries buying stock, not because property values are going down, which let's not forget, they are going down in value, especially in London. But hold on a minute, the price is going down and the currency is also weakening. So people in Europe or in Asia and America may be looking at this as the greatest opportunity. And it's one of those things that the government for a long time have tried the very best to stop people from investing in residential properties from abroad. Well, now it's coming an impossible task unless they start controlling the currency exchange. And let's be fair, real estate or buy-to-let property investment cannot be the only reason why you control currency exchange. So we have now got this issue whereby we're trying to stop people from buying properties in the UK, but actually that's just not going to work. And we're going to find more and more foreign buy-to-let property investors buying stock in the UK. Because we can't ever forget that it does give a good return investment. And there's a lot of buy-to-let property investors from abroad that do not need a mortgage. So Section 24 really is not going to be the answer that the government can turn to stop this type of investment. So we are still going to find competitors. So even though we've got less competitors from the amateur landlords, which are those ones, people that's got one or two properties, now we've got this situation whereby, well, in reality, we've got more competitors from abroad. So you used to be able to go to see a property and you walk down the road and you've got maybe 3 or 4 kind of British people living in England buying properties. And now you've got all these kind of guys who are not even probably going through them, to see the property themselves, but by proxy. So now we've got this extra layer of competition. And if they've got a better exchange rate, then they can push up the prices as well. So we do need to be aware of this extra competition coming into this world. I'm pretty pleased to say that we've got Property Investor today, and buy-to-let property investment, is it still worth in 2019? And it was nice to read this article, but the only reason is that we wrote this article. So it was quite nice to be able to go, hey, hold on a minute, I'm sure this sounds familiar. And in this article, I talk about the pros and cons, income generation, capital growth, spreading risk, time commitments, all the kind of things that you would expect to from a high level, to think about when you're investing in property. And I didn't really talk about tax too much, of course, but I do talk about the types of the cost of buying into properties, what you must think about in terms of single let properties, HMOs. So it's great to be finally in Property Investor today. So thank you ever so much, guys, for publishing our article. And for anyone that just wants to look at that one, it's worth having a look at that. So this is buy-to-let property investment. Is it still worth it in 2019? Do go ahead and read that article. It's one of those things that I was writing from a very high level, but it gives you a good rounding in terms of, is buy-to-let property investing for you? I still think it is, by the way, but I want to kind of give you everyone a bit of an idea of the things that I was considering when buying properties in the future, either for myself, by the way, or indeed for the new one. So it's great that my head could be swelling hugely because I finally got myself an article in Property Investor today. But I'm just pleased that it's there, and hopefully we can share the love and knowledge that we all have. Moving on quickly. So we have, we're just going to go to, yeah, fine. Oh, crikey, Ronnie. So the next one is Accord Mortgages. Oh, that's the advertising. I'm just trying to get rid of this. Where am I talking about here? Okay. Financial Reporter, that's where we are. So Financial Reporter talks about majority of buy-to-let and lenders now offer limited company products. So again, another article that says, if I'm just going to squeeze this a bit further. There you go. So 59% of all lenders offered limited company buy-to-let products in Q2, up from 49% in Q1. And it's just, again, just re-emphasizing this whole point of the fact that we've got so much more choice now as a limited company buy-to-let property investor. So I do expect this whole thing to be more competitive. I've kind of repeated myself a little bit on this subject, so I won't go into too much more detail. Have a look at this extra article if you like, and I will be putting my comments, these links and these kind of main highlights in the description box below this video. Okay, so I just want to get that emphasis there. And I've just realized, guys, that I'm wearing this new waistcoat for my big announcement later on, and second of all, I've completely forgotten that I've not even done my cufflinks up. So how scruffy and lazy is that? So apologies for that. So I'll keep my hands down from now. Letting agent today, again, talked about this new online buy-to-let investors unveiled. A property education business that is targeting major expansion with its launch of online products. And it's nationwide as well. Now, I don't do nationwide kind of stuff, but touchstone-based, sorry, speaking again, I've just put the first word and the last word, and it just made a real mistake here. Doncaster-based Touchstone Education, which runs weekend seminars and courses for property investors, is aiming to double its 3.5 million turnover within the next 12 months. And really to go to £10 million worth of turnover by 2021, which is great to see. But it's going to be looking at doing different types of property investing, but online. And I kind of think I love that idea. This wasn't my idea for the announcement later on, by the way, not at all. But it looks like we're pretty much now going online. Something that Bill Gates talks about. So if you're in the education business, do think about going online more than doing physical courses. One, I think Bill Gates was talking about schools really and to keeping people virtual. But he was saying even back in the 1990s, I remember vividly seeing this interview where Bill Gates talked about doing a lot of educational seminars online. And this is very much keeping in touch with that. So if you are in the education business and you're doing a lot of classrooms, do think about kind of spinning off and trying to do a bit more online. But again, it's an interesting one to say that if these guys are thinking about doing courses, that buy-to-let is not dead by any means, and there are different ways. Interesting enough, it talks about so-called Brexit investment manual as well. So it's kind of looking at different ways of investing in property. So if you're looking at ways of investing, then maybe have a look at this article by Letting Agent Today and new online courses for buy-to-let investors unveiled. So have a look at that article as well. I just realised this is a hat trick, isn't it? Because I don't normally do an awful lot with the Telegraph into the news articles. But this time it's a hat trick. Well done to the Telegraph, because normally I always pick out maybe one every 2 weeks for Telegraph. But it's just, this article is a great article by Telegraph. Should I let my tenants renovate my buy-to-let property? It sounds like a no-brainer. Well, the thing that I would say on this is, and it just talks about a question that people might have, but what I picked up from this article was the fact that if you have got a tenant and they're looking to renovate it themselves, you might choose to give them a bung of money and say, well, sure, yeah, I'll give you some money to actually do the refurbishment. But the big thing is that they may not charge you the full amount. They might just say, well, just help me out with some of the money to do the paint and whatever else. Second of all, if your tenant is saying to you, look, I wish to renovate, as in put the work in to do the property up, then, well, surely it tells you that they've got longevity in mind and they're not looking to move out. So it's a great way of saying to someone, say, well, if you want to renovate it to your style and your liking, then go ahead, because if you're going to stay in that property for another 5 years or even 6 years, then you've got all of this money coming in guaranteed. You don't have to look for another tenant. And it's keeping them happy because it's making their house a home. So it's nice to have that. I'm not sure why I emphasize that so much. It's like, make this house a home. Dramatic pause. So having this home is telling you they're going to stay there longer. They're not going to charge you the full amount. So isn't it a good idea? Well, I would say most likely yes. However, I will say this. It might be worth you putting in some stipulation, because you don't want them to paint that house black. Let's be fair about this. It's going to look like an eyesore. And indeed, if they decide to knock down walls and then it becomes unsafe, well, then that comes back to you, doesn't it? Because it's your property ultimately. So you do need to be careful. And it's having this negotiation to say, well, yes, it is, but tell me about your plans, what are your thoughts, and then we'll agree with the outcome of your work. And then please go ahead and do it, and give them a sweetener for doing that by giving them some money. So I do think there's a great way of getting your tenants to stay by creating a home rather than having a rented house. And it's something that we've always done in our accommodation, is to create a beautiful apartment that people really want to be in. And the reason for that, of the way we've done that, more importantly, is we've always had nice furniture in the property. We have paintings on the wall, which people really like to look at. We have nice TVs in there. So we furnish the property out for our tenants. That's what I'm coming to. But we do it in a nice way. We have very nice furniture going into that property, so it feels more homely. Better home, I'm hoping, than the home that they've left, so that they'll stay there longer. That's the ultimate plan for what we do as buy-to-let property investors, something that you might want to consider as well. And this is an article, I have to confess now, guys, I have to confess. This is an article that I shared with you maybe 2 weeks ago, but I thought I'd just share it with you again. It's 22nd July? No, maybe I must have shared it with you last week. So this is just showing about being over 60 no longer limits buy-to-let borrowing. And it was just showing there's no legal limit to buying properties, but just look at these words on the screen. I'm hoping you can see that the number of people that are buying property investments is increasing, which basically means that we're going to find a lot of retirees still investing in properties. And I think that's a great pension pot. for this country to try and stop people from investing in property, I think it's the worst thing. I think the government, I'm not going to go on a rant like I did last time. I've kind of calmed down. I'm on different medication to smooth it. I'm on chamomile tea. That's a joke, by the way. I'm not doing any of those two things. But ultimately, I have looked at the way that the government have acted against buy-to-let investors, and I found that we need to work around these tax changes, because there's going to be an awful lot more tax changes, I think, now Boris is in, and hopefully a positive steer in terms of leading this country going forwards, but also in terms of what might happen around SDLT and tax changes, and whether they'll just ease off from us landlords. I'm hoping so. But this just goes to show that the number of investors are aging, and people are going to retire, not because they, well, let's be honest, the state pension is either going to be non-existent when we all retire. If you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you may get to an age whereby the state pension is not worth what it's paying you out, to be fair, for the journey of going to collect it, if that's the thing in the future. Do people collect money from the post office any days? I think they still do, but I'm sure it'll be the thing in the past altogether when we get there. But the point is that state pension is not going to be the one that keeps your lifestyle. So we do need to think about our investments. And you've got stocks and shares. You've got things like gilts and bonds. Oh, they don't really give you much money, do they? So property investing could be something that you look at as an alternative, because it gives you better return on investment, and indeed you control your asset. And I think people do like to have some sort of control. And we are seeing this increase now by older generations getting into property, and mortgage products are also getting better as well in terms of providing those offerings. So those are the articles that I've been reading, are very much a great consensus of, we talk about buy-to-let investors using limited company structures. We're seeing that banks are very much looking proactively at limited company structures. There's education companies now saying, hey, we think that buy-to-let property investing is still a good thing, which I also think that, trying to provide better education. I think it's a great marketplace for us, and a great positive steer for the future as well. And indeed, with Boris as well at the helm, maybe some change, some good change is about to come to us as well through the government. So what I thought I would do is just go back to my screen. If you've got any questions, feel free to type those property investing questions in the comments box below. I will answer those shortly. If you have any buy-to-let tax questions, I will also be answering those in the comments box below as well. So make sure you do that. If you're finding this useful as well, guys, then give me a thumbs up. That'd be really greatly appreciated. And don't forget to stay tuned, because at the end, I've got a huge announcement to be making to you guys about what we're going to be doing tonight. In the future, very, very near future. But a special announcement for me to say something to you and for you to get some enhanced knowledge around what I think about property investing in the future. So please stay tuned, and I can see my screen going crazy as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to a new share, which is, I'm just going to try and find that actually. Okay, so I've done in the news, so hopefully you found that useful. I'm also going to now do the client FAQ. So client FAQ section now, this is whereby we look back in terms of the questions that clients have been asking and the answers that we've been providing as well to kind of make their lives a little better from a tax perspective at least. So I'm going to do a new share with you, and hopefully we'll get onto that document now. So just bear with me while I do that. Tax call notes, that's not the one I want to share with you. Here we go. YouTube. Okay, cool. Right, so this is the kind of questions. I'm just going to zoom this a little bit here. Okay. So the first question that came out was taking money out of a limited company with a key emphasis now on loaning money to your company. So what might happen is you might loan your money to your limited company. So let's give you an example here. Limited company buys a property for £100,000. It might get a mortgage of 75%, which is £75,000. and then you need to top it up with £25,000 from your own money, if you have that lying around, of course. But £25,000 from your own pockets goes into the limited company. Now, that's an interesting dynamic, because this 25,000 money that's transferred all the way over. I'm not sure why I'm doing the finger movement. It's just kind of entertains me more than anything else. But I know. Now, there's £25,000 go, ooh, more entertainment noise now. So going, ooh, over here to your said limited company. And this limited company now owes you this £25,000. And it means you can take that money anytime that you want, because it is a debt. So it's not an income if it transfers that £25,000 back to you. It is purely debt repayment. So it's not going to pay tax on it. You're not going to be paying tax on the transfer in or out again. There is no tax. However, and drum roll, please. You might be thinking to yourself, how does he do that? I'm drinking water, and also there's a drum roll in the back. I mean, what kind of genius is this guy in front of you? Who knows where my talents end, apart from wearing stylish waistcoats? Why am I wearing this waistcoat? Just in case you haven't remembered what I said earlier, this is for a special announcement that I'm going to be doing later on. So please, please, please stay tuned in terms of that announcement, which will be scheduled in about 20 minutes' time. Coming back to this whole point, if you loan money to your limited company, you can charge its interest. That's right. You can charge your limited company interest on the amount of money that you have loaned to it. Yay, tax-free income from your limited company. Don't forget, if you've got some money, let's say £1,000, is transferred from the limited company in form of interest to you, it is a cost to that limited company, and it can indeed get tax relief on that interest payment. The interest payment now comes to you as an individual, and what you'll be doing is, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you can get £1,000 worth of interest tax-free. So yes, money from the company to you tax-free of £1,000. Now, what happens if you're a high rate taxpayer? Well, for anyone reading ahead, you will be able to see that it says here that there's £500 that can be paid to you in the form of interest from a limited company of £500. Anything excess of that is normal tax planning, but it does allow you to do some tax planning, which we're doing now with all of our clients as part of our 200-point checklist. Yes, that's true. 200-point checklist for a limited company set of accounts, by the way. That's crazy, but we are keen to get our quality assurance across to our clients. But ultimately, let's coming back to why this is so interesting. Even as a high rate taxpayer, you can get tax-free income in the form of interest for your limited company. Now, just some things you need to bear in mind here is that if you're going to do this, there is a form called a CT61. So what would happen, and what I always advise our clients is before your full year end is up, make sure you look at this interest payment that we paid to you by looking at your own personal tax situation, as well as the tax position of the company, and saying, well, should we be charging the company interest? And we have a loan document that can be used for our clients that basically says, I am going to charge this company this amount of interest, which might be variable over a period of years. And what I would say, the amount of interest that you should charge your own limited company should be between 1% and 8% typically. Now, you might say, well, actually, I'm going to charge 0.1%. And to be honest, that's absolutely fine as well. So maybe scrap that last edit. So I don't have a television crew behind me. So I would just say, I'm going to re-echo. Charge your company between 0.1% interest and 8%. Let me restate that. So 0.1% is probably the minimum that you should charge your limited company to 8%. And that is to get tax-free income into your personal name. Again, just to re-emphasize the point, basic rate taxpayers, you can get £1,000 of interest into your coffers without paying tax. And high rate taxpayers, don't worry, because you haven't lost out. You can still get £500 worth of interest as well. Now, you do need to look at all your investments, because those numbers I've just talked about is in total. So if you've got bank accounts sprawled all over the place, then you need to think about, well, how much am I going to get before you do any of this tax planning with your limited company. But CT61 is needed. CT61 form is a document that needs to be sent to HMRC. And what will happen at your year-end point, you would decide and agree what interest is going to be paid to you as an individual. And your company will basically say, okay, we've got £1,000 worth of interest that needs to be paid to one of our director loan people. And that CC61 needs to say, this is the person, this is the amount of interest, and we're going to deduct 20% tax. Okay, this is a spoiler alert, because if you're going into doing this and then later on you say, oh, brilliant, I've got some tax-free income, and then all of a sudden you get the CC61 that says, well, you need to deduct 20% income tax from source, as in the company needs to pay that over to HMRC. You're probably going to think, hey, this guy's a screw. He told me that this income would be tax-free, and now he didn't tell me about the CC61 that tells me that my company needs to deduct 20% tax. Well, don't worry. Yes, that is true. This needs to happen. Basically, what would happen, just to give you a bit of a recap here, is that you would agree £1,000 worth of interest to be paid to you as an individual, but CC61 says you need to deduct 20% tax, which basically means £200 of that goes to HMRC, £800 now goes to you. But do not fear her, because you can claim that 20% tax back on your personal self-assessment. So all is not lost. Yes, money has gone over. And that's why I would always say, make sure you only do this as close as damn it to the personal self-assessment tax year end, or indeed your limited company tax year end, so that you don't have this loss of 20% tax. So ultimately, it's something that you can think about with your accountant, tax advisor, of finding out ways of getting money out of a company. Paying family members, I love this one. Paying family members. Can you pay your children? Can you pay your spouse? The answer is yes, and yes, and yes. However, okay, let's just think about this. Paying a spouse, that's easy. If you have ABC shares, you could have salary being paid to one another. You could have dividends paid to one another. That's okay. You need to think about your own personal tax planning for your husband, wife, civil partner, whoever it might be. Okay. So tax planning individually needs to take place. So if you have wages being paid from the limited company, don't forget you need to do payroll, which is RTI tax filing. And you've also got this issue around the whole thing of ABC shares. If you've got a husband, spouse, or civil partner, whichever makeup you have, that you have a differentiation of share. So one person would have an A share, one person would have a B share. And then you can distribute dividends out accordingly, however you want, from a tax planning angle. One thing I would always say to you is, even though you've got this differentiation of dividends, make sure that you have the dividends paid out to a different bank account. The reason for that is, if you put your, let's imagine they've got a high rate taxpayer, and you say this person takes out £2,000 worth of dividends because that's tax free, and this person takes out £10,000 of dividends because two of them £1,000, the husband's wife, civil partner, has got £2,000 worth of dividends, but the rest of the £8,000 will be taxed at 7.5% because it's the basic rate tax band. Well, that's good tax planning, but you don't want HMRC to say, well, that was equally distributed, so we're going to tax it as though it's 50-50 because you deposited the dividends into the same bank account. So I would definitely recommend that you have a different bank account for husband and wife. If you've got different tax bands, you're paying dividends out in a tax efficient way to each other. So do think about that. Paying minors, don't do it. Okay, you could do it, but don't do it. Okay, so legally, yes, you can do it. Tax planning, no, don't do it. If you pay any money to a minor, so Hugo's right now is what, 4. If we paid him dividends out of a company, we would have to pay income tax on that dividend distribution because he is a dependent. So anyone that is 18 or below is going to be a dependent. So you pay any money to them as a parent of a limited company as well, you will be paying extra income tax by doing that transaction. So not a very good thing at all. And indeed, if you've got someone in full-time education, 21 or below in university, for instance, and you make money contributions to them, again, you will have to pay income tax on that distribution. So you do need to think carefully about money that's paid to your spouse and indeed your children. That was a question that came up. So have you got a limited company? You listeners now, hopefully you're still with me, but have you got a limited company structure, and are you planning on making any payments to your spouse, your children, or indeed are you thinking about, have you done it? And what kind of share structures do you have? Do you just have ordinary shares? Do you have ABC shares? Do you have preference shares? What shares do you hold? It'd be great and interesting to see what structures you guys are currently using. So again, please do type in the comments box below this video or at the side of this video. I think some people, if you're doing live, I think it's on one side or the other. But please feel free to type that in. That would be an interesting insight for me personally to see what structures people are using out there. Okay. I've got a couple of minutes before I kind of go on. There's two more questions I want to cover off winters of what our clients have been asking in the last few weeks. And I want to cover that off. The whole world is changing, as we know, with residential property investing. 3% SDLT surcharge. You've got the SDLT higher tax bands as well compared to commercial rate tax bands. I've got itchy nose. I must be bewitched. Wish, wish, wish. No, it's still here. No, I'd love to be, maybe my wish did come true. Maybe being here with you is my dream come true. It's very romantic, isn't it? So what's so interesting about commercial to residential? We know that the tax challenges of buying residential properties isn't such a good idea. So that is why people are buying commercial properties to residential. And a couple of clients have been asking that question this week, saying, well, what are the advantages of buying a shop or a office and then converting that into residential? And the first thing is, I would say, is that there is permitted development to convert offices into residential dwellings, because the governments do not want these empty offices scattered around the UK. They are very, and there's a shortage of homes as well. So it makes a good argument to convert some of these commercial dwellings into residential units. So they've got permitted development. SDLT rates are much less when you're buying a non-residential property than it is to buy residential property. So that's something I would say as well. You don't have this 3% SDLT surcharge either buying non-residential dwellings. Your VAT rate on conversion is also reduced from 20% on material and labor to 5%. And we also got to remember that if the property's never been residential or residential in the last 10 years, then you may be able to claim back that 5% VAT charge as well when you come to sell the property on. So there's many, many reasons why people are using commercial to residential conversion as a strategy. One, it's easier to buy commercial property. There's not so many competitors going after that property. The tax on SDLT is much less, as it is with the VAT as well. So there's quite a few points, and I will be typing in this into the comments box below as well, so you can have a look at this later on. And what I'll also do is I'll point this video link at the top here, so you can have a look at that in more detail. Funny enough, I should have said that there will be links to taking money out of a limited company in the video links of what we've talked about before. So I will be putting that in there as well. The last one is latent gains when incorporating. So there's a lot of talk about Section 24. Not only should I buy a residential property investment inside a limited company, but should also it be incorporating my existing property portfolio that's in my name into a limited company? That is a question that we get asked a lot. And the thing to bear in mind in this, yes, there are ways of mitigating CGT because of incorporation relief, thanks to the Ramsey case. We've also got ways of mitigating SDLT by transferring properties to a limited company as well. But we do need to think about a particular capital gain tax that is not going to be avoided with that much ease. And it's called latent gains. And the way that this works is that you have originally in your own name purchased the property, £100,000. So you've got 75% mortgage on it, which is 75,000. Not too difficult to understand at this point. But then you refinance after many years because property price has gone up, or you refinance the property because you've refurbished it to a better standard. And what will happen is that you get the property to £200,000. Yes, that's a fantastic increase, I must admit. Not one that I've done, I've got to be honest. But another client did. So just to re-emphasize the point that you can make some good capital growth strategies as well. So £200,000, got a new mortgage, so it's £150,000. But please note that this now causes a latent gain if they wanted to incorporate that property. You know, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there for now. But if it does cause a latent gain, and this is because the new mortgage is £150,000, as we can see there, £150,000. And then you've also got the original purchase price of £100,000, which is causing this £50,000 latent gain. So capital gains normally is around the sales price less the purchase price, but in latent gains, it's talking about debt. So if you've got this situation going on and you want to incorporate your property portfolio and you've got an overall mortgage value that's greater than the original purchase prices of those properties, then you could be causing yourself a latent gain issue, which is taxed at 18% or 28%, which is the normal capital gains tax rates. So it's not all singing and dancing in terms of capital gains tax and then an incorporation. Just because of the Ramsey case, you've now got this latent gains issue to think about as well. So I'm just wary of time because it's already 10 to, and I want to get to your questions. So I was going to talk about capital allowances. What I'm going to try and do is leave that for next week. So next week I'll head off with capital allowances as my first subject matter, and I'll talk about why that is a good thing for you to watch out for. And I've also missed out deed of trust as well tonight. I just can't believe that time has flown beyond where I thought it was going to be, where I talk about deed of trust and capital allowances. I will do that next week, so I don't miss out on the tax tips that we gave to our clients last week. What I wanted to do is now talk about the FAQs that you guys have got. So what I'm going to do is just go to stop share now. I'm going to bring myself to full screen, which probably causes you guys a bit of a heart attack. Take that horrible image from my mind. So if I have caused you a bit of a discomfort because you've seen my full face now, I can only but apologize. Okay. Let's move on. So the first thing I want to talk about is the pleased to be joining in tonight from Louise Whitley. Louise, it's lovely to have you here. And don't forget to make sure that you stay tuned for this big announcement that I want to be giving later on, which I will be giving to you guys in about 7 minutes, which will be 8 o'clock close off. So Louise, please do stay tuned. Can I do oh, by the way, if you do have questions, please do type those in the comments box below this video. Oh, that was a bit half-baked, wasn't it? Below this video. Do your comments box so I can help you understand how to save tax. And now I've got to straighten out my waistcoat. So what I want to do is for you guys to give me a like. Okay, so you've been listening in. If you found this interesting, then please feel free to drop in me a like into this video, because that really helps me know that I'm doing a good job, or if I suck and need to stop. But I'm hoping that you guys are staying with me, so I'm doing something right. So let's get back to Louise's question, which was, can I do a rent-to-rent with my new limited company to my 2 properties held as a sole trader? Louise, don't do it. Unfortunately, what Louise is talking about here is I've got properties in my own personal name, and I've got this limited company, and can I do a rent-to-rent so that most of the income goes into the limited company? And unfortunately, it's something that we said, yes, you should do that, but we're saying don't do it anymore. And the reason for that is simply because you will be taxed under GAR on income tax rates. So you still don't get the benefit of using a limited company rent-to-rent structure at all. The government will unwind that through GAR, which is I suppose I call it gentle. It's no gentle about it. GARD stands for General Anti-Abuse Rules. Please note the word abuse. It used to be General Anti-Avoidance Rules, but now it's General Anti-Abuse Rules. So if you're using a limited company in that way, unfortunately, we're saying to all of our clients, don't use that structure anymore. We may have suggested that years and years ago, but certainly not anymore. So we're telling people to unravel that. Now, I'm just trying to see that. So I think that's Lin Wanda said, I opened a limited company in June 2019, and I bought my first property, which is a new build off-plan. Great idea. Off-plan properties does normally mean that you get a capital gain out of that because the property prices should increase in value. So I'm hoping, Lin Wanda, that you've definitely got that benefit, and that's always a good thing to do. Buy properties off-plan. So what did they say afterwards? At what stage do I need to involve an accountant? Well, typically, I would say you've already purchased the property, wait until you've got taxable income coming in from that property, and then seek out to get a specialist. I have had a video talk about when do I need an accountant, which I'm going to put up here for you. So I need to make a subject matter to say when you need an accountant. Do watch that video. That kind of gives you an explanation whether you need a one-off tax consult or whether you need a retained accountant going forwards. And I would say there's pros and cons for both, but ultimately make sure that you get the most value for money when choosing an accountant to work with. It's one thing to have confidence and comfort, but it can't be exploiting your wallet, to be fair, if you're not getting the benefit from the advice. So make sure that you do your due diligence on that point, and watch that video about should I use a limited company? And I think I've labeled it saying, should I use it because of Section 24? But in your case, I would watch, what am I talking about? Sorry, completely one off tangent. Should you use an accountant? That's the video I was talking about. So watch that video about should I use an accountant, and hopefully you'll find a way to make the right decision for you. Louise has asked a question, director's responsibilities. I've read somewhere that I send minutes to HMRC. There is only me in the company. Do I still need to do this? Actually, writing board minutes is a company requirement. It's the legal company's house requirement, indeed, for you to write AGM notes, minutes of the meetings, etc. And to be fair, you can do these yourself. You can get templates from Companies House and just do things. I have to be honest, I would always do minutes and stuff like that when you need to do them. So if you're making a decision that is a financial one, and someone else could be like a bank, for instance, that could be harmed in any way by the decisions that you make, that you at least document it through board meetings and get a solicitor to do that with you. You can get an accountant, but typically they won't want to do that kind of work because it's not numbers, it's words. Not very good, really. So I would always work with solicitor, or indeed just get some templates off Companies House website and get some board meetings there. But yes, they are legally binding. You have to do these. And I would argue, though, how many people are policed in writing these documents. I don't think it's going to happen that much, to be fair. So yes, it should happen. Are people penalised? Well, maybe not, to be fair. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I wouldn't worry about it too much. Someone's asked a question. Should I work full-time and have a few buy-to-lets in my name and plan to build up a portfolio? Can I begin to invest in my limited company, then transfer my personal buy-to-lets in a company? What issues do I face? The first one is, Sam, is I'll put a video about incorporation in here. So please do watch that video. That would be really interesting for you to watch. But in that video, I explain about how properties may be incorporated into a limited company from your personal name. But I would emphasize the point as well, watching the earlier video about saying, should I use a limited company because of Section 24? I'm not saying you should, by the way. I'm here to say that you should look at avenues, and the limited company structure should be the last one that you look at, in all sincerity. If you are looking to use incorporation relief to mitigate CGT and SDLT, you do need to be governed by the 1809 Act, Partnership Act, which talks about you must be a business to form profits. And partnership, no doubt, you should be listening to, is a key word, because partnerships is two people or more. I do explain in that video about those partnerships and what it means, but that is such a key thing for you, Sam. Before you jump into using limited companies, make sure you get a tax consult, or indeed watch that video I've just explained to you earlier to see if that structure is right for you. Your tax situation and personal circumstances might change in 5 years' time. So the tax positioning you might choose now may not be effective at all in the future. And that is my key emphasis on that video. So do please watch that video, and I'll make sure I'll put links into that for you. Okay, it gives me great opportunity now to give you the announcement of what I wanted to talk to you about. This big announcement. Okay, so what I wanted to do, I'm hoping now that you still see my ugly mush here, but what I want to talk to you about is, and I'm going to just bring you to my channel, my YouTube channel. This announcement was something I've been planning for some time now. And I'm just going to share my screen just so you don't have to have the frightener of my face. You can just watch something a bit more interesting. So here we go. So this is it. So you'll see down here, I'm hoping you can see the screen here, where it says 1,057 subscribers. I made a deal with myself to say, look, once we get this business up and running through YouTube, marketing strategy, and 1,000 subscribers has been hit, then we would do something pretty special. And I haven't done it. I haven't announced anything, but I'm going to do it tonight. So this is the first time I'm going to unveil this. We used to run property tax workshops throughout the UK at certain intervals, or to be honest, when I could be bothered. But basically, I did a roadshow. It meant that I stayed in hotels away from the family. It meant that I was able to kind of get some great tax knowledge out there. But ultimately, it meant there's sacrifice for me in personal life, sacrifice for the people attending as well, to be with without family. So what I wanted to do instead was do a YouTube property tax workshop, which means two things. One, it's free. And two, you don't need to leave your home. And three, I'm doing it in bite-sized chunks. So this is the first time that I'm doing a tax workshop. And what it will be is, I'll come back to that in a second. So what the date is to be announced is going to be Monday, the 12th of August, 2019. I'm going to run it from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. So it is going to be, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm sorry, but I'm going to do this live. So this is kind of really to screw things up. So I can only apologize that I'm going to do this right now. So bear with me 1 second while I do a quick tweak. In fact, do you know what? I might just leave it. Yeah, I'll leave it. This is a blunder, isn't it? I'm doing a big announcement. You could tell I'm not in marketing, because I would have done that so much more professionally than I did. I horsed around too much there. So what's going to happen is it's 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. So that is in 2 weeks' time. It is going to replace the tax workshop. And I was thinking about, do I need to do it from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. because that's the normal start time. But actually what I'm going to do is do it from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. I've got to think about this. It will be one time or another. I'm going to stick with 6 p.m. It's just easier. I'm looking at it thinking, no, it's a wrong decision. I might do it from 7 p.m. because then you know it starts and we'll have an extra hour. So people can't just jump in half an hour or 1 hour in and go, what's happening? This is great content, but I didn't know it's happening. So I'm going to do it from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. So it's 2 hours still. I'm not going to kind of do anything out of that. So my hours here will be out of kilter. So please add on an extra hour. What an abysmal, shocking announcement I've just done to myself. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But anyway, what I want to talk to you about is this is the agenda for this free property tax YouTube live workshop. Okay. I'm not sure I can even say that again, so I'm not going to, because I'm going to spill all my words out here. But the idea behind it is we'll do first 20 minutes will be types of property investing that you might be wanting to get into. the return on investments and stuff like that, and the locations you might want to buy property. And then I'll move into get the basics in place. So I'll talk about administration, tax stuff that you might be interested in. And then stamp duty, land tax. I'll talk about the tax changes there, and indeed some of the things that you might want to look at in terms of tax savings. And I'm going to run through an example throughout this entire course. So hopefully you can start to see how you might feed into that particular example. And then we'll talk about value-added tax, ways to reduce that tax break. And again, I'll use one example throughout this presentation. We'll talk about Section 24 and limited company tax structures as well. We've already had questions around limited company tax structures. So if you're around, and like I say, I will do this. In fact, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to do this from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. So it's going to be a late night for me, and indeed probably for some of you guys as well. But I'm hoping that you will get this. I'm just going to do the share so you can see this coming up on your screen. So I will do the session from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. on Monday, the 12th of August. Put that in your date. I'm going to find a way to market this out in terms of different kind of platforms that I use. So there will be lots of there. I want lots of questions throughout this session as well. But it's my way of saying thank you. Thank you, thank you. I'm so pleased that we've got 1,000 subscribers. I've always said that YouTube would become a marketing platform for us. I doubted myself. So again, thank you ever so much for proving that right, that my message is coming across. And sincerely, I'm pleased that I'm helping a couple of people each week just to make some tweaks to their property investment strategies, or indeed tax strategies, to help them make more money and reduce their tax liabilities. And that way, this is my first ever YouTube property tax workshop. And it's just because I want to say thank you. So that was the big announcement, which I kind of cocked up. So I can only apologize. I don't have a television edit crew either. So that crew I'll probably have to hire and sort this abysmal mess out. So please do bear in mind, this is going to replace the property live session that we normally do, which goes from 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. This one on the 12th of August will replace that one. So, you know, it should be a good session. So make sure that you're going to stay tuned. It is an extra hour. It's going to go from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. Just about to say 12 p.m. How embarrassing is this? So 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. on Monday, the 12th of August, I'm going to be doing my first ever property tax workshop through YouTube. So it's free. Do it from the comfort of your own home. I'm going to get my message across, and we're going to do announcements. And I'll end up doing quarterly events now through this YouTube channel, because it's just my way of saying thanks for kind of attending these workshops, Monday night sessions. I really enjoy doing it. And one other thing I want to bring to your attention as well is we do have another video coming out on Thursday, which you can see there, 1st of August. And the title of that video is 7 Ways Why Landlords Pay Too Much CGT When Selling Property. I've already done a video about capital gains tax, of how to mitigate it, but this is my new video coming out on Thursday that explains why people pay too much CGT. So thank you ever so much for joining me. I'm just going to see if there's any comments that people have left for me before I ditch off now. Wow, there's quite a few questions here. Please include the URL to the YouTube live stream in Eventbrite for this event if marketing through them. We're actually going to do it through our own website now, so hopefully we're going to improve that as well. For this session, now to search YouTube before, I didn't see the link on Eventbrite. So Quicks, can only apologize that you didn't see it. We are going to do it through our YouTube channel, but we're also going to do it through our website as well to make life easier. So hopefully things will improve from a communication perspective as well. But don't forget that this session will be fantastically well attended. So make sure you get your questions lined up for the agenda, property tax and property investments in 2019 and 20. That's what this whole agenda is all about, by the way. So that's in 2 weeks' time. Next week is going to be the normal session. So this is where I'm going to be doing the normal. I'm just going to go into new share. I've screwed that up. So this is where next Monday, I'm going to be back again, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. The normal stuff of looking at the property, what's in the news. Then I'll go on to the client FAQ. And then third and finally, I'll be doing the YouTube FAQs as well. So please feel free to join me next Monday for that session. But don't forget, 12th of August, my way of saying thank you to you is the first ever YouTube Live Property Tax Seminar. And that's on the Monday, the 12th of August, between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. And I will be doing URLs quick. Don't worry about that throughout my pages as well. So thank you ever so much, guys, for listening in to me tonight. It is very much appreciated. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed these sessions as well. I'd be really would be appreciated. And until then, have a fantastic week, and I shall see you again next week. Thank you. My name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimise Accountants. Good night.